Hello, everybody. My name is Tommy Waller. I am the head of HaYovel, a volunteer organization in Israel. I'm very excited about being a part of this show today.
I am Kimberly Troup, Director of Christian Friends of Israeli Communities, and I am a Christian Zionist.
And I am Sondra Oster Baras. I'm the Director of the Israel Office of Christian Friends of Israeli Communities, and I am an Orthodox Jew. So welcome back, everybody, those of you who have been with us before, and welcome to all of these who are joining us for the first time today. Our subject today is weddings and marriage. And we have a lot in common, Christians and Jews, when we talk about the sanctity of marriage, but the way we celebrate marriage is really very different in many ways. So this is what we're going to be talking about today, Jewish customs of weddings and marriage and how they differ or are similar to Christian ones. So Kim, what is it about a Jewish wedding that you think our friends will want to hear about?
Well, my very first Jewish wedding was many years ago. A mutual friend, I came to Israel and was there, but I wasn't so, it was just really, I didn't know the bride and groom, and it was a little bit, so I was just kind of in awe. But a few years ago now, Yehuda got married, and I got to come to Yehuda's wedding. So I was very, very close. I've known Yehuda since he was 8 years old and got to be on the inner circle, so to speak, of that wedding. And as I watched it unfold, I was absolutely fascinated. It really, really impacted me how different a Jewish wedding is from traditional Christian weddings. And the biggest thing that I saw, or that really I looked at, and when I looked at the wedding, was the interaction of the parents and the interaction of the community. And how I felt like, with a Christian wedding, traditionally, it's a show. It is, the bride and the groom and the bridesmaids and the groomsmen. But it's all like, as the audience, you're very much separated. They're on display. And Christian weddings, I don't mean to... Hopefully nobody takes that offensively, but that's just how it appears, when you're in the audience. Whereas a Jewish wedding, you're involved. There is no such thing as an outside looking in. You're involved in every aspect of the wedding from the beginning to the end. But especially like under the chuppah, when I saw that his parents and her parents stood under the chuppah with the bride and groom. And so a lot of that, we're going to ask you, explain what happens at a wedding, go through all of these symbolisms, because there's so much involved. And I think that, in Hollywood and in movies, like there's pieces and parts of a wedding that we've glimpsed, but we may not fully understand. I think everybody has seen it, some movie in somewhere. There's a really stupid movie, and I can't think of it, but they like get married in the hospital hallway as she's going in to give birth, and they can't find a preacher, so they grab a rabbi, and so the rabbi does it, and then the guy, they're not Jewish at all. It's a stupid movie, but they break a glass. Like, what does that have to do with anything? But so there's elements of Jewish weddings that I think people have seen, but they may not really fully understand. So that's really what I want to pull out from you and have you explain to us. But the sense that I saw with the Jewish wedding is that complete, I didn't feel like they were alone. I felt like that when it wasn't about the wedding. I feel like a lot of times with Christian marriages, it's so much about the wedding and the hoopla and, this production that takes months and months to plan and prepare and thousands of dollars. But as soon as the wedding and the production is over, there's zero support. And the bride and groom go off on their honeymoon, and it's sink or swim, baby, because there's no sense of community. There's no one there to catch them. Like we hope and pray that they've done premarital counseling, and we hope and pray. But, we wonder why there's such a high divorce rate. Well, I feel like there's a lot of not a support system. Whereas in the Jewish wedding and marriage, it wasn't so much about the wedding. It was much more about the marriage. It was much more about two people coming together with the support of her family and his family and the community at large. And I want to talk about the Sheva Braho because I got to go to one of those parties. And, just again, that was part of that community. So tell us from the beginning. Tell us what happens at a wedding. I know.
That's a lot. So first of all, when you talk about a Jewish wedding, if any of you have seen Fiddler on the Roof.
Yes.
Fiddler on the Roof has a wonderful wedding scene. And it really kind of, even though it's a scene that takes place at the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century in this little town in Russia, and everybody is dirt poor, so you certainly don't have a catering hall and, anything fancy. But the elements of that wedding are really the elements of a Jewish wedding. And so you might remember there, you have the bride being escorted to the wedding by her family and neighbors and friends. And you have the groom being escorted to the wedding by his family and neighbors and friends. So I think, and then when everybody comes together, there's no seating and there's no, nothing is formal, but just kind of everybody comes together in this one area. You have the chuppah in the middle and they get married and everybody around is dancing and merry. So that's the element of a Jewish wedding at its source. And I'll get to the discussion of what a chuppah is in a minute, but it's very much, like you noted, Kim, a family and a community affair. So one of the things that I found very interesting moving to Israel, of course, I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish home in the United States and was very exposed to weddings there. In fact, I myself got married in the United States in a Jewish wedding. And so what's interesting is while we had the chuppah and we had also, there's no question, the family participation, the community participation was still very intense, even as it is here in Israel. There was a bit of an influence from the American culture. So, for example, I had bridesmaids, and my bridesmaids all wore the same dress, and we had flowers, and having to choose the flowers was a big deal, not to mention an expense, and everybody with their bouquets. And there were these very fixed rules about things like flowers and bridesmaids' dresses and tuxedos and all this stuff. Well, I have to say, thank God in Israel, we don't do that. Now, everybody is dressed in their finest. But it's certainly much more flexible about what you come in. You'll have kids dressed a little bit more informally. It's not unusual to see, especially young people coming in like flat sandals, the kind that maybe you would see people wearing to the beach, Important is that it's comfortable to dance in, that's the important thing.
The dancing.
But this whole idea of bridesmaids is such, it really doesn't fit. Go back to that, Anna Tefka, Fiddler on the Roof thing. Yeah, bridesmaids are your good friends, but what is this procession of the bridesmaids? It's just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so in Israel, we've gone back to the original without, although we do have a catering hall for sure, and everything is very pretty, and you may have flowers to frame the chuppah, and you may have flowers on the tables, but you're bridesmaids and they're not carrying bouquets and whatever. Now your bride may carry a bouquet because that's what we see in the movies. Yeah. But anyway, so what happens at a wedding? So first of all, the bride and the groom typically don't see each other for anywhere from a few days to a week before the wedding. And the whole, it's a custom. It's not a rule. It's a custom, but it's a very widespread custom. And so the idea being to create this element of suspense and drama, so that when you meet again under the chuppah, it's a fresh start in every way. And so during that week, the groom really has gone back to his family, even if he may have lived in a bachelor apartment somewhere, or he was at a dorm in school or something. He's come back to his family, and the bride has come back to her family. And the Shabbat before, is very much a family time. Maybe each of the bride or the groom will invite some very close friends to join them for Shabbat. But it's this sense of that last opportunity together with the family before this couple goes out and makes their own new family. And so that idea takes us into the wedding itself. When you come into the wedding hall, there'll be a separate room for the bride and a separate room for the groom. Each of them will be receiving friends, relatives, anybody, but it's separate men and women. So the women may dance for the bride and the men may dance with the groom. It is also a time when we have a ketubah. Ketubah is a marriage contract, and we use the same language of a marriage contract that has been used for 2,000 years. So that is business that gets taken care of. Typically, the rabbi will bring the ketubah, sit with the groom, and he has to sign it, and witnesses sign it. But really, if you think about it, this opportunity where each of them are sitting separate and receiving their guests, it's like this last opportunity where they're still with the guys with the guys, the girls with the girls, and with their families, as they're about to leave that their own family group, and join. And then what happens is the groom is escorted by the two fathers, and all these men dancing behind, escorted to meet the bride.
Yep.
And the groom then approaches they're escorted up till about, let's say, a few feet before where the bride is sitting. The bride is sitting on this beautiful bridal chair, and her beautiful white gown and her veil, which is off of her head. You can see her face. And then the groom approaches by himself to the bride. Typically, they exchange a few little whispers there. Whatever I never asked any of my sons what they said. It's really none of my business. But and this is really neat. Then at that point, the groom lifts the veil. Now we always make sure we have a two-part of the veil that covers the back, the hair, and then a part of it that gets put over the face. And so the groom takes the veil and puts it over the bride's face. And this, by the way, is actually very, very biblical based, because remember the story of Jacob. He got tricked, and he was given Leah when he thought he was getting Rachel. Now, I guess in those days, the women were really covered with a very opaque kind of veil so that he couldn't see who he was marrying. But the idea here being, if you're going to go into your chuppah with a veil over your face, it needs to be the groom that actually checks you out first, makes sure you're the one that he wants to get, and then he puts the veil over your face. Now, there are some Hasidic groups that have a custom to have an opaque veil. And you'll see in some films and stuff, you may see this very thick fabric with lace or whatever, where literally the woman can't see out. She sees down. She can watch her feet, but it's her parents are holding on to her for dear life,
guiding her.
But that's just one kind of a custom. It's certainly not the custom of where I'm from and, my relatives and community. Anyway, so then what happens is both bride and groom are escorted in dance and song by their friends and family to the chuppah. So after the groom has covered the bride, they turn around and all these men dance him to the chuppah. And there he waits for his bride to come. Then some of the guys come back and dance the bride together with her parents, who are bringing her, on each side, and the friends and whoever, the women around, come from the back, and they're escorting the bride with song and dance, and then she can then go up to the chuppah where her husband-to-be is waiting for her to come up and join him. So that in and of itself, I think, is a very, very special thing, whereas in some of the Jewish weddings in the States, it becomes more formal, and you have the processional, and you have the bridesmaids, and here, it becomes these people just the Anatevka style, taking you to the chuppah. Now the chuppah
and the whole audience joins in, like behind the procession, everybody's dancing, everybody needs to understand. It's not just
the groom, and then all the women that accompany the bride. Absolutely.
Right. So everybody's involved, and it's all going up. I mean, clearly the people right around the bride and groom are, her close family
Right,
and whatever,
right.
but the entire audience is involved in this procession
Right.
of coming up to the
Right.
chuppah.
Right. And singing and dancing, you know,
Yes.
and very often you'll see, depending, like we're kind of, especially me, I'm like a very active type of person. So, and my kids are too. So like my kids were like dancing down the aisle
Yes.
and I was dancing with them. So like we were like, you know, dancing down, you know, none of the staid walking, you know, none of this.
No.
Right. You know, we were just, you know, dancing our way to the chuppah.
Right.
And, you know, it was really great.
Yeah, there's never a pause either. I think the musicians at a Jewish wedding, whenever there's like, if there's ever 1 second that somebody's not saying something, the music starts. You know, you're gonna have like it is like one continuous party. The whole wedding is just like it never stops. There's never a pause. There's never a pause where you're just gonna go, oh yeah, we're waiting for the next thing to come. No, music starts. It's going. You know, they're going. Even during the wedding. I mean, it's like there's music from start to finish, right? I mean, it's just like the music never stops in a Jewish wedding.
Well, they do
at least the weddings I've been to.
They give you time to eat when there's like slower music.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Not enough
we
time.
won't stop for food, you know.
Yeah. But anyway, then the chuppah itself symbolizes a house. The idea, you know, it's a canopy held on 4 poles, and some people use a talit, where they actually hold up 4 poles. Some of them put a talit on top of the canopy, and some just have a canopy that's established in place with 4 stationary poles. But it's symbolizing the home, and basically, and what we say, I mean, the blessing that we give to a new bride and groom as they get married is we bless them that they should build a loyal house in Israel, loyal to each other, loyal to the nation of Israel, and loyal to the God of Israel. Okay, so that's that. So, and I think this is where you get this whole idea of the community and the family, because when we look, we just recently read the Torah, the beginning of Genesis. We recently started Genesis, and if you look at Genesis, we have the creation of man and woman, and the first commandment that God gives to man and woman is you shall be fruitful and multiply, which of course means have kids, right? And for us, I think this has become, it's not just how many kids do you have, can you take care of all those kids? Of course, everybody's got to, make their own decision of how many kids they can handle, but the encouragement is to have children, not just because you personally want to leave this legacy, you want to know that you lived your time on earth and look how many children you left behind you. But the idea being that you are helping to build the community, the family, the community, and ultimately the nation of Israel. So the wedding itself is the heart of the matter, because it's through the marriage that 2 people come together, and you have that wonderful scripture again in Genesis where God instructs man. He says, therefore, a man will leave his mother and his father, and he will stick to his wife, and they will become as one flesh. That is how God created the world. He created men and women that they're going to come together, and in leaving their own separate families, they become their own new family. But as a community of Israel, we say this then becomes another family in Israel, another family that are our children, and helps to build the nation. So the fact that everybody's participating and everybody is joyous is representative of this idea that it is not just a personal celebration. It is also a personal celebration. Of course, the couple is in love, and of course, they're very excited about building their own home. But as a community, we see what they're doing is also contributing very much so to the nation. And so everything that comes from that, like you mentioned, the Sheva Brachot, Kim, there are 7 blessings that are said under the chuppah, blessing God in a way that reflects on this marriage, praising God essentially for what He has done to create the opportunity for marriage, and typically different relatives or honorary guests, maybe rabbis or teachers or whatever, are given the honor, each one under the chuppah, to say one of those blessings. But then for the days following the wedding, the following 6 days for a total of the week, every evening, friends or family of one or the other side will make a dinner party for the couple, and will have anywhere from, 20 to 40 people. On occasion, on Shabbat, it can be a much bigger affair where, we don't drive on Shabbat. So if all the family wants to get together, they all come with their kids and everything. And then you can have big meals of 50, 60 people. And again, this is the people who are hosting the dinner. They cook the food or whatever. And it's a way of connecting this couple as a couple back to each family, to the friends, to the community, and giving the family and the friends this opportunity to continue the celebration through the week. And I think part of this is a recognition that, they just started marriage. It's very exciting, but it's also, has its anxieties. This is a young couple and they're doing something completely new. And it's a way of saying you're on your own, but you're not on your own.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. We're with you. Yeah. And one other thing that I would just add, and then I will have certainly talked enough, and I want to hear from you on all this as well. Another thing that I think kind of relates to this is that I've heard many, many times among Christians or Americans or whatever, this idea that the young people are going to wait to get married until they can support their family.
Right.
Especially guys very often are pressured to build themselves up and only then get married. And it comes with that the sense of they have to be independent. That becomes like a foundation of marriage. And I would say for us, we definitely believe that the couple as a couple has to be independent. They have to be independent of the influences, negative influences in particular. They have to be independent of those who are trying to interfere in their relationship. Their relationship is their own, and nobody else should be interfering in it. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean they have to be financially independent yet. If you have found the right person and you're young, but you're mature enough to get married, not just I fell in love with him, I saw him for 6 minutes and, I'm going to get married. Not that kind of thing. But if you're mature and you understand what marriage is involved, but you're young, so you're still studying, or you just started out working and you don't have very much money, your family is going to help you. And your family is going to help you buy a house if they're able to. And this is not something you have to do, but it's something you're going to want to do to the extent you can and to the extent the couple needs. The couple doesn't have to feel this sense of pride or whatever. Oh no, I can't take help from my parents, because our parents helped us. We're helping you, and you will help your children. Not forever, of course. We want to bring our children to independence, okay? But they may need help at the beginning, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because for us, we are nurturing this new family into existence. We didn't just nurture our babies, but we're also nurturing this new family into existence.
Exactly. I just want to go back to the Sheva Brachot, because I don't think that, I just want to make sure that people understand, because this was the part that I found so fascinating about it, is two elements. One, that each night, each party is hosted by a completely different set of people. So sometimes, like the party that I attended was the party that you hosted. So everybody at the party was your age. You didn't host it, but a friend of yours hosted it.
It was my friend. Right.
So it was your friends that were at the party. So like the bride and groom were the youngest, the only ones there that were young. Right. Everybody else, I was the next youngest, and everybody else was much older. So it was a very different kind of party in that, it wasn't, it was definitely the olders mentoring the younger, but not every party's like that. Some of the parties are hosted by their friends.
And their friends, right.
And maybe,
what
are
I've seen with
married or young married or whatever. Yeah.
The younger ones that host, so they'll order in a few pizza pies,
Sure, right.
popcorn, ice cream.
Right.
It's a whole different deal,
environment, right? But in that, it gives the different. That was the beauty that I saw on it, was that there were so many elements. You had the elders that were there that should you get a month into the wedding and all of a sudden you're fussing at him because he didn't take the trash out, like they have someone to go to and say, hey, how do I deal with, should I be fussing at him? Just you have that relationship. That's what I guess, is that those relationships are there, and they're not created at these parties clearly, but they're evidenced at these parties. And I really felt like that all of the different elements, all the different types of people that were hosting parties would give different support and different elements for the marriage itself. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is that the 7 blessings that were prayed over them or spoken over them at the chuppah, at the wedding, are again repeated at every single party, no matter how crazy or wild. And it's not, like it's a party. It's not it is a very serious thing. Like the blessings are taken very, very seriously, but it's also very, very fun, so it's not like this really, Victorian kind of, sit on the horsehair chairs and don't move kind of thing. No, it's a very fun, light, laughing time, but at the same time, it has this very serious element to it as well, that you are speaking these blessings into their life and into their marriage and into their future. And that part to me was just absolutely fabulously fascinating.
Yeah. And the other thing is, when each of these people make the Shavuot Brachot, except for the young people, they're doing their own thing. But any of the age of the parents, or grandparents even, who are making a party like this, they're going to always invite the parents of both the groom and the bride, regardless of which side they're on, because it is just considered an integral part of the occasion. It's not just the bride and groom that you are celebrating; you're celebrating the parents too, because they're an integral part of this thing. And it's not just. I know in a lot of weddings that I've seen on TV, Christian or American weddings or whatever, it's the father who, gives away the bride. But the groom, he's on his own, he's just there, whereas, and that's expected of him. It's part of the independence. But here it's, I had one of my sons got married very young. He and his wife had just turned 21, the week before. They were very young. That was
very young.
Right. But then the other ones got married in their late 20s or in their early 30s. So they were clearly already mature, self-supporting, living out of their house. But yet there was no difference. We brought them to the wedding. We, were involved with their Shavuot Brachot, because the relationship of parents and children in this sense never stops.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Maybe you want to, I don't know, you have anything to add, Tommy, or anything? Because I want you really to go in a little bit, Sondra, to what happens under the chuppah. There's the circling of the groom, there's the breaking of the glass, just again, some of those
so
symbolisms.
Just quickly do that. When the bride first comes up, again, the groom is standing there waiting for her. When she comes up, she immediately circles, and typically the 2 mothers pick up the edges of her dress or the train, whatever, and circle with her. And she's surrounding her husband as a way of kind of cementing this relationship, and then the ketubah, the marriage contract, is read. The 7 blessings are said, and then, and of course, in between, like you said, Tommy, between each blessing, the music goes and everybody starts to sing. But then there's a part that is the one serious part of it. Well, it's all serious, but the one that isn't is joyous, and that is the breaking of the glass, which really goes together with the declaration. The groom or the bride and the groom will make a statement. They will actually read, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, to read that scripture. And then they will break the glass, because the whole symbol of breaking the glass is a memory of the destruction of Jerusalem, the destruction of the temple. And the idea being, at any joyous occasion, we always need to still remember that there's something missing. And that what's missing is a final redemption. Now, of course, centuries back, what was missing is a lot more than just the final redemption. They lived in Anatevka. The pogrom came the next minute. They certainly couldn't have dreamed of living in Israel. So for us to be saying this when we're in Israel, we know we're already, I would say most of the way there. And yet, because the dream is not complete, we'll still be breaking the glass, and we'll still saying, if I forget the Jerusalem. And that's very often it ends the ceremony. And then so people say, oh, they break the glass. It's like the sign for, okay, now let's, break out the music.
Party.
So in some ceremonies, and I think we did this for some of our kids, they actually put that part in the middle, because they didn't want the breaking of the glass to become the symbol for, okay, now let's all sing and dance, because then it's not the meaning of it, So then they'll have that part in the middle, and then afterwards they do the 7 blessings, and after the 7 blessings are over, there's, oh yay, everybody, Mazal Tov, and they start the singing and dancing. So that, and also you probably saw this as well, Kim, that after the ceremony is over, all of these family and friends and everybody rushes up to the chuppah, and there's just a lot of hugging and kissing. Somewhere in the middle of that, the bride and the groom actually go down from the marriage canopy, and they actually go to a room where they are by themselves for about, 15 minutes or so. And they're given that few
privacy.
moments of quiet and privacy. It is customary.
They haven't seen each other for a week.
It's also customary in many, many places. We have this custom that the bride and the groom fast on the day of the wedding. So this is all, they're hungry. So there's food in there that they can have food, because once they come out, and they're there for 10 minutes, and then they come out, and typically there's a time of family pictures and whatever. And then the bride and the groom come into the wedding hall. Now, in the meantime, in the wedding hall, what's been going on is that people have been eating their appetizers. People sat down and they started eating the appetizer. But between the appetizer and the main course, and it's all very, very scheduled. Okay, it seems very
yes. As an attendee, it was like you had no idea that it was so scheduled, but it was.
People who don't schedule as well, but my weddings, you know me, I schedule. It's very scheduled.
It ran like clockwork.
Right, but anyway, then the bride and groom come in. At the point at which they come in, that's it. The singing, the dancing, it goes wild. And again, in an Orthodox wedding, the men are dancing separately with the groom, and the women are dancing separately with the bride, and that's a lot of fun. But then at some point, the bride comes in and sits next to the groom, and then you have all these guys that are dancing in front of them doing antics. They may be juggling or doing these flips in the air. It's all these guys that know how to do crazy things, or they dress up in funny costumes, and they make fun, or they carry signs, and sometimes it's family or friends that are going to dance or do some kind of antic that has a special meaning for this couple or for one of them, an inside joke or something like that. And it's a lot of fun. And it's just, and at some point, they do stop the music for a break so that you can have dessert, or have your main course. Right.
Yeah.
But, the young people don't like to stop to eat. I go sit down and eat, but some of them still dance. And then after the main course, between main course and dessert, there's another round of dancing. So it's just a lot of fun. And it's circle dancing. It's not couple dancing.
Right.
It's all everybody joins together in circles and round and round. And I have to say, Kim, I remember that first wedding that you were at with me many years ago. I remember that you were very, you felt very excited at that time, being pulled into these circles,
Yes,
and being part of this whole group of people, just dancing.
Even though I knew no one but you and the father of the groom. And other than that, I knew no one.
By the way, I don't know if you remember this, but that wedding was very striking to me because I had you with me. I was suddenly looking at the wedding also as an outsider.
Because you had to translate everything.
Not just translating, but like I also wasn't just like explaining to you what was happening technically, but started looking at it from an outsider. And I don't know if you remember, but at that time it was the worst of the Intifada. This was a time where people were being killed every single day.
Yes.
And this particular wedding was a wedding of friends who, grew up in a community in Judea or Samaria, actually. And I remember then looking around and realizing that everybody in that room, I'm talking about the young people, everyone in that room had experienced some type of terrorism. Every one of them had either had a rock thrown at them, or had lost a friend, or had lost a parent. And it was a terrible time. And I remember thinking at that point, wow, how we are able to put that aside and rejoice with such feeling, even as we're living in this awful, awful time. And that feeling has stayed with me ever since.
I remember saying that to you at that particular wedding, because I said, because it was a horrible time and there was so much death and so much terrorism going on and fear and and I felt like the energy that came off that wedding, as I said, it's like they're living life to the absolute fullest at every second because they don't know what the next moment may hold. And it just was like, live it to the fullest now, because tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Right.
And the next day is definitely not guaranteed. And I definitely got that sense when I was there. So yeah, very much so.
You know what, Tommy, I know that you've spent so much time in Israel, and I know you must have been at some of these types of weddings. You actually were at another one of my kids' weddings, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly your sons were. I mean, we had Wallers at different weddings. One was here. Your sons came to one, you came to another, but where do you take all of this, and where have you gone with it?
I think for me, it's like Kim was saying, it's just I think I was taken really aback by the whole joy of the wedding, the Jewish weddings that I attended. And to me, it was different. Not to say that my wedding, Sherry and I's wedding, wasn't joyful or happy, or it was, but in comparison,
right.
It was like
it was like a dull affair.
Our wedding was a dirge. We were doing. It was like it was a processional for a funeral. Compared to what you guys experienced. But and I think the whole, even looking, it's so hilarious. I mean, just makes you just want to just laugh with happiness. Not laughing at, but it's like to see the whole family fitting under a chuppah. I mean, because who's not up there in the chuppah? It's like everybody's fitting in this chuppah, and it's like you got the parents. Okay, think about it. You got parents, grandparents, and obviously brothers, or somebody's part of the wedding. You got the camera guy, by the way, in a Jewish wedding, the camera guy, it does not matter if he's in your way. Like in the Christian marriages, the camera guy tries to stay incognito. I mean, he's like hiding behind things. No, during the whole ceremony, he's like right there in the face of the rabbi and everybody up there. Nobody in the audience can hardly see the wedding because the camera guy's like. But the whole important thing for the whole thing is that you got the that they're getting a momentum. They're getting the video of the wedding, and they're getting every detail. They're not missing anything. So and everybody just goes with it, and I love that. I love that every single piece of the Jewish wedding has some spiritual content to it. It has a there's some element of spiritual content in everything. I love the blessings even that the the woman is actually almost like anointed that day. It's such a holy day for the woman that all these women are just lined up for, out the door, waiting to get their blessing and anointing for whatever, to be
Right.
married,
Right. I
to
knew you
get
were gonna mention that.
pregnant, to
Yes.
get, yeah, I mean, it's just like that. And
You know
so
why
there's a
you
lot of
mentioned
those
it?
things.
Because I have
Yeah.
sons.
Oh,
What's that?
I have sons.
Oh yeah. You missed. Yeah, but it's something that everybody. I know. Even the first one that we went to, Sherry said, I'm gonna get a blessing.
Yeah.
We prayed for her to get pregnant again, but that didn't. Never mind. That wasn't gonna do that. Uh, hey, you started the show off with be fruitful and multiply, and we said, and I was like, amen. To that. But um, to me, there's such a element here of one of the things I think that we can learn as Christians from the Jewish community is this element of joy. You have to have joy,
mm-hmm.
and no matter what the circumstances would be, that you were able to have joy in a wedding, even in the midst of you know horrible Europe in the early 40s and 30s, that a wedding, even in the in the what do they call the little
Ghettos.
the
Ghettos.
ghettos, yeah, even in the ghettos, that there was joy, like people were
Yeah,
getting married in the worst circumstances, and music was still being played, and all of these things, horrible things going on, and yet they were still going. So we have taken some of those things, and actually brought them into our wedding. I love the picture of the house and the chuppah and the blessings, that because there's so many people being part of the wedding. You have in a traditional Christian wedding, basically the only thing you're seeing in a Christian wedding is the back of their heads. You got a good view of the pastor, like the
right.
pastor. You can see, because he's basically speaking to them, and he's giving a message to the congregation or whatever people that are there. But until they turn around and say, "Oh, here is Mr. and Miss whoever," you may not see their faces, the whole time. In the Jewish wedding, it is everybody's involved. Everybody is, and I really love that specialness of feeling included, and even Kim was talking about the dancing. Oh, if you're close to the circle, I don't care who you are, or you're going to get pulled into the dance.
I say you have
And
never
every Jewish
experienced
wedding,
dancing.
yeah, like I'm seeing 90-year-old men like dancing for, I don't know, I didn't see them stop dancing. They had this thing like, I'm going to have to get in shape to go to Jewish weddings. I'm gonna have to get. I'm like, I've got to be. This is crazy. I'm like sore the next day. I can't imagine these guys. Literally, I mean, seriously,
It
old
is an
men.
aerobic workout like you have none other.
Nah, sweat
and
just
with
pouring off of them. Men that were 20, 30 years older than I was, and I was like going, I can't do it. I'm exhausted. And I'm really gonna have to get in shape to go to a Jewish wedding, because
so
it is
true.
just nonstop. You're dancing in the wedding, you're dancing after the wedding, and it's just incredible. But I think to me, the spiritual part was the thing that I enjoyed about it, because we see. I know the prophet Jeremiah talks about in Jeremiah 33 the voice of the bride and the voice of the bridegroom, and I think it's so much a part of the redemption, that I heard a statistic today. I was just looking at some stuff before the show today, that 75% of the Orthodox community, adults, are married, and whereas 50% of the secular Jews are married. And it's just like it's so a part of the religious community to be married. And I can remember Rabbi Yonadav Zar, who's one of our rabbis here in very well-known family here in Judea and Samaria, and he comes into our tent, and he's just looking at our young men, going, why aren't you married? What is going on here? He's like,
well, Kim, you had that same thing. When
I did.
to Israel, you weren't married, and everybody who met you was Jewish, saying, well
why aren't you married?
What's up?
Everybody was trying to fix you up with somebody. Like, if they guy, they wanted to fix him up with Kim, because how could Kim not be married?
Yeah, well, it's like,
So
and that's
true.
funny. I had my sons here. None of my children were married at the time, but there were Jewish women saying, "Hey, I want your sons to meet my." I said, "Listen, I'm fighting off, not proselytizing here. No,
Right.
you're coming at me
no
saying, don't say
dating here.
you're wanting to marry my children. Like, you guys, this is crazy. What's that? What's the word? The word for Meshuggah or whatever, that's this is terrible." And I'm like, but it's almost like within especially the women, the older Jewish women, they're obsessed. Like,
well, I'll tell you something.
you're not married. I'm going to get to work on you. We're going to find somebody for you. This is you.
Okay,
we're
so
not
this
going to.
is another part of Jewish weddings that I don't know if I've ever mentioned it to either of you, but I mentioned, my youngest son got married first, and he was very young. But I had all these older sons that weren't getting married, and were dating and weren't finding the right one. There wasn't a wedding I went to that I didn't spend the time talking to all these other women my age, seeing if we could match up my sons with their daughters or their neighbors. And it wasn't just for me. In other words, people came up to me knowing I had sons. Oh, I have a daughter, I have a niece, I have a neighbor. Let's see, what any of your sons? I mean, we're talking major matchmaking activity goes on at these weddings between the mothers.
I was 26
crazy.
when I got married.
That.
So yes, early 20s, being in Israel, being single, and everybody was just like, "What is your problem?" And I'm like, "I don't know, because I haven't met the right one yet."
Yeah. Oh, I
did. Thank God I did.
Yeah. Well, it's been really, I think, good for our young people, because a lot of young people come here with us, and to get excited about it, because I think there's so much in our culture that where it is there's a lot of pressure on young women and even men, even young men, to try to find or to measure up, or to not have to, it's on me to do this, and why is it not happening? Or and when there's a community effort, you're going to have people get married. I think it's something that when everybody's involved and everybody's working and everybody's doing that, I think for us it's a little bit uncomfortable to that whole, that it's pushed so strongly within the Jewish group. It's not something we're used to, because we basically have just, the whole idea in Christianity is is as the man is like a hunter. He's just going to go to college, and he's going to find him a woman, bring, and parents basically have just said, "Hey, you find her, bring her home, we'll get married, and that's good. We hope you make it, type deal." It's not a family affair. It's
not a family.
So I like that, and I love the always the connection. The Jewish, it's always connected to identity, always connected to Israel, always connected to Jerusalem. Nothing that you do is not connected spiritually to who you are. And I think with the Christian weddings, at least today, there's not really a connection, identity connection there. Some maybe more than others, but it's very secular mostly, and there's not this. Nobody's even thinking about God. Nobody's thinking about the spiritual aspects of much of anything. There's some, not saying this about everybody, but it's not consistent. And I like the way that the Jewish people have this consistency, even in the weddings and the things that they do. You're going to go to what Jewish weddings have been different that I've been to, but they're all that same. There's that same atmosphere that's there, And to me, that's an amazing thing for me to be a part of. That is was every time I go. Sherry and I love to go. The children love to go to Jewish weddings. It's just the highlight for them.
Get in shape. Get your aerobics on.
Yeah, I got to get in shape, man. My football knees. I got terrible knees from playing ball, and I'm out there going, but I'm standing there next to an 85-year-old guy that's like he's like doing, jump. He's off the ground 3 feet, and I'm like, I can't even get it's terrible. We got to get there. We got to get it.
That was definitely an element of weddings, because in some Christian circles, dancing is absolutely forbidden. Like it is such an unholy thing. Yeah. I mean, it is like, and so when you experience dancing, right? When you experience dancing at a Jewish wedding, because it is men and women separate, that was something to me, because you could dance because no one was watching. You were dancing before the Lord, and it really had that element of like David, King David dancing before the Lord, and just like letting it all hang out and just being, because you're not worried about whether or not anybody's looking at you or whether or not your boobs are flopping, or it doesn't matter, because you're like completely separate.
I don't say.
But I'll tell you something. It reminds me of a couple of things. First of all, many, many, many years ago, before I was at the stage of having weddings for my children, we had bar mitzvahs for our children. And of course, bar mitzvahs are much more modest affairs, much smaller, but we also have dancing, similar kind of dancing and songs and whatever, just on a much smaller level. And I had Christian friends that I invited to one of those bar mitzvahs, and they came, and he came up to me afterwards, this fellow who remains a friend of mine, but anyway, he came up to me afterwards and he said, I am amazed. He said, I see all this amazing joy and dancing and singing and just such enthusiasm, and not a drop of liquor to be had.
Right.
Now at weddings they will have some whiskey or whatever, but people don't drink a lot. But certainly at the bar mitzvahs, it wouldn't even have occurred to us to have liquor. I mean, why? And he was just so amazed at the fact that the joy was not something that you had to imbibe in order to bring release, but that it was such a natural thing. And the other thing is the words to the songs that we are singing are almost exclusively melodies that are put to scripture.
Right.
And many ways. So some of the scriptures have to do with the weddings, like what you quoted from Jeremiah, the voice of the bride, the voice of the groom. Right. That scripture is put to many, many songs. It's also included in one of the 7 blessings. But all these other ones, but some of them also include just kind of scriptures that would be more characterized as praise to God, prayer, whatever. And so I've always felt that part of when we're dancing, we sing as well, at least I do, we sing along, we sing the words, and to me, it is a form of prayer. Yeah, it really is. You allow yourself, though, to pray in a way that you take your whole body into it, Yes. And with like what you said, there's absolutely no sexual overtones. It's women separate, men separate, but it's allowing yourself to jump and to move your arms and to just, sing joyously these praises to God. And I think that's part of the experience as well.
Yeah. I think one of the things that as far as the song, you're saying singing, just really making a joyful noise, because I've noticed that, but even most Jewish, on the guys' part anyway. Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard like a really great Jewish voice. I mean, I know they're out there, and I know but when you're in like somebody's home and you're doing Shabbat, or if you're at the guy's singing as loud as he can. He can't sing. He can't carry a note, but he's doing it with so much feeling. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It has, absolutely, the Christianity
It's
would be.
not a performance.
You're
It's
not
not a
qualified.
performance.
You are not
Yeah.
qualified to sing. Do
Yeah.
not sing
Yeah.
at my wedding, okay?
Right.
But these
Yeah.
guys are grabbing the mic. They're gonna sing, and they
Belt it
sound
out.
terrible, and they're just belting it out. It's great. I love that.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could sum up a Jewish wedding in one word, and that is absolute joy. Just an absolute expression of the ultimate of what, we go back to Genesis, and that's where it's founded in, when God said, a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one. You just sum it up. It's an amazing experience. So if you ever get invited to a Jewish wedding, go. Do not turn down that opportunity, because it will just absolutely change the way that you look at it, because it's amazing. At least one in Israel. I don't know about America, but
yeah, absolutely. But I
think it also. Well, I just want to just say that it also has to do a lot with the restoration
Yes.
of Israel.
Yeah,
Because
amen.
this week we just started planting trees here in Israel this week. After we're almost done with the harvesting here with our volunteers, we started planting. One of the rabbis shared with us in a very good passage in Isaiah 54 about the desolation being like the picture of an unmarried woman. And then the redemption being the picture of of a woman that God has not forgotten, that your maker is your husband. That's one of the verses there. And I see that. And so there's a sticker bush here that's all over all of the desolation. Sondra, you if you look at any field in Samaria, any vacant lot, there's going to be these thorn bushes everywhere.
Right.
And one of the rabbis said this is the widow's garment. But when we start planting here, that the land becomes the bride again. It becomes this whole, the wedding garment is the lush produce that's going to be produced here. And so our guys are really getting excited about that. So the picture to me it's a bigger picture and a deeper picture that I think that Christianity needs to understand. This picture, it resonates, it echoes throughout all our spiritual life until this culmination of the redemption. And thank God, it's not just going to be a Jewish thing,
Right.
We're all going to be participating in this wedding feast. Isaiah 25 talks about this feast. It's like a pretty wild feast, but it looks like that we're all going to be a part of that. And I'm excited about that. And I would just say to Christians that we have to be a part of the physical restoration of Israel, not taking this identity, not taking away Jewish identity, that this wedding is actually totally embodies what's happening here in Israel and the Jewish people and the return to the land. It's all about a wedding. One time near the vineyard owner said to me we were standing on the over the Mount of Blessing, looking over at Mount Ebal, and he said, Tommy, this is the place where the wedding took place. This is half the tribes were on Mount of Blessing and half the tribes over here. Joshua and the Kohanim were in the middle, and they made a vow to the whole nation. And he said they married the land. And I was like, whoa, it hit me. It struck me. Wow, I never looked at it. The Jews are married to this place, and the whole world really needs to become married to this place. And so the picture to me is a big picture for all of us. What the Jews have held on to from generation to generation, in keeping the voice of the bride and the voice of the bridegroom joyful. It's a big deal for all of us. So I for one am really appreciative of that.
Well, I want to just conclude this program and thank you all for watching with us. And I actually want to just extend a blessing to everyone out there. If you are not yet married, I want to
Amen.
I want to ask God on your behalf to help you find the right man or woman that will enable you to create your new home. And whether you're Jewish, and that will be a new home in Israel, or whether you are not Jewish and it'll be a new home in your own cultures or faith, if you're Christian, a new home, coming together in marriage with a new home, to honor God together and to create a new family. I think this is a value that we can all share.
Amen.
Amen.